Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Shumi's had a rough couple of weeks. He had to go to the BIC, ride motorcycles there. So he needed to slow things down, take it easy. So he went to a go-kart track this time around to ride something electric, which...
It's a tough job, but Kartik, someone's got to do it.
I know, not sour grapes at all.
I just took both of these two for the team.
Thanks so much, Shumi. And since we're talking about a go-kart track and an electric, this should be interesting.
Yes, so I went to ride the Ather 450 Apex. When they said it was at Mecco Kartikeya in Bangalore, honestly, I got really worried. Mecco has not been a great venue for electric launches. I've been to two. One of them was so bad I can't even discuss it. The second one was the Orha, which you've seen on MotorInc First, didn't go well. But it wasn't a hat trick.
It has not a hat trick. Nice.
We had a good time.
This was the...
This is the new Ather 450 Apex.
Self-explanatory.
Is it? Please do tell.
Ather 450 Apex.
Right.
I mean, okay, let me summarize this. This is the Ather 450, which we've seen for the last 5-6 years or so. But as with every update, it looks a little bit different because of all the color changes that happen. And since this is the Apex, they must have really pushed the envelope on this front. And maybe they have different colors on the scooter this time for different panels as well. So it looks a little bit, yeah, like it's really pushing the envelope on that front. I don't know.
Dude, Nostradamus is feeling threatened.
And on that note, because it's the Apex and it has to push on other fronts as well, it will have better performance, of course, which will be higher peak power. And it can sustain that with the same motor and the same battery pack because Ather has realized how reliable their hardware is. So they've unlocked a bit more. And since this is pretty much, now it's old in its life cycle, I'm hoping there'll be another Ather of some sorts coming along with fresher, better hardware at some point. So this is now pushing the envelope of the Ather 450. So better peak power, same battery pack, I think, and just it's the same hardware, but they have optimized it better. There will be, of course, a different ride mode. Warp Plus, Warp X, Apex, okay, maybe, which will unlock that additional performance. And of course, you will have the other scooters on offer, but this will be the flagship and it replaces the 450X.
Okay, so that was an example of generative human intelligence. Kartik and I have not discussed this scooter at all. He made the whole thing up and he's got a number of things right in there.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh wait, does it have better suspension and tires? I'm sorry, just throwing it in there.
All right. What they mean by the 450 Apex is actually two things in the word Apex. One is it's the top of the 450. Higher performance than this from this platform is not possible according to Ather.
Okay.
So it's the Apex.
Right.
It's also possibly the last product from the 450 platform itself. And the next platform that will come will be a strongly changed, maybe derivative, maybe not, but based not like this.
Okay.
The next thing that they're making is a family scooter. This is known, and I think that's about 3-4 months away. So what the 450 Apex represents, therefore, is max performance.
Right.
And what they've done effectively is two features. But before we go into that, let's quickly close the aesthetics discussions because he's spot on. It looks exactly the same, but there is a new color. Ather explained the philosophy of the color schemes that they've done so far, which is a subtle color with a bright highlight or a bright color with a subtle highlight. Thank you very much for that. On this scooter, they're using a color called the indium blue.
Okay.
Which they told us is the most recent blue color discovered. So this indium blue was only discovered in 2009. This is just information for you. I don't know what difference it makes, but it is a nice looking blue scooter.
So the whole scooter is blue?
Yeah, so the front apron, the sides of the footboard, etc. are all blue. And remember they did that transparent edition called the Ather 1 or something like that? So they've got a transparent back of the scooter, but it's tinted blue to match the indium blue.
Right.
They've got a gloss finish on the outside. They've done a frosted finish on the inside. So you can see an orange aluminium frame inside. So the contrast color is orange, which pure happen chance has the exact same Pantone code as the KTM orange, which is very cool. Because when there was a display there and that Pantone code was there and Jehan and I were joking about that's not KTM orange. And then Jehan later texted me saying, no, actually it is KTM orange. So pure coincidence, of course. But It's a blue scooter with orange highlights where the back panel under the seat is completely, well, nearly completely transparent.
Okay.
They have some finish issues there where, for example, there are a couple of zip ties on that frame which are still black. And they said they could not get orange zip ties to match the orange exactly, which is why they couldn't be turned orange. So they left it in black. But if I were buying that, I know the KTM sells orange zip ties here and there. Amazon has orange zip ties. I'd just go with a mismatched orange, which will, I think, look better than black. But it does look nice.
Okay.
But the panels are the same.
Okay.
It looks exactly the same. The headlight, everything is the same. The visor over the handlebar is still black and all of that thing. And
so just to be clear, the Apex comes only in the one color.
It only comes in this blue color.
Okay.
In the accessory range, the side blades, I think they've got 5 or 6 shades of blue.
Oh.
So you can get a matched blade or you can get a different colored blade if you like. So you can do a little bit of customizing on that front. But yeah, it's only in blue. And let's be clear, this is a celebratory edition because Ather just completed 10 years or they're in the process of completing 10 years.
Okay.
October next year, I think, is when they will stop production of this Apex scooter.
Okay.
So I think they'll open the bookings now and you'll be able to start getting deliveries, I think, by March. Between March and October, they'll make as many bookings as they can.
Oh, really? That's the wait is that long?
No. They're saying we're going to start delivering by March. From March to October, whatever orders we take, whatever number that is, we will make that many scooters.
Okay.
But it's therefore not limited edition, but they will definitely not make it after October.
Any reason then why they did it so early? Because that's
I think
not
they're
typically
celebrating the 10 years as a year rather than a date.
Okay.
So it's a celebratory thing.
Okay.
Apparently, Tarun told us that the team insisted that there should be a product that marks our 10th year.
Okay.
This is what they came up with. And you know how I've always said that the top speed of an electric scooter that is fast, performance oriented needs to be 100. Well, the Ather Apex will do 100.
Oh, right.
So you've got plus 10 kmph on top. But this is going to be a really short MotorInc First. We might not actually do a summary because Kartik covered some of it. Because there's only 2 new features really to talk about. So the battery is the same. The motor is the same. Okay, but they have a new mode which Kartik super accurately called Warp Plus because that's what it's called. It replaces Warp, so it's not Warp and Warp Plus.
All right.
And Warp Plus is the most aggressive riding mode they've ever created. To the point where they're saying that the motor will overheat in this mode, so the deration will happen pretty early on.
Okay.
Like Ather does, deration is not obvious and in your face. It's not like, oh, so fast, oh God, it's done. No, it slows down a little bit and we could feel it happen. Okay. It's not significant, but the jump in performance is noticeable.
Warp itself was mad.
Yeah, and they explained why Warp feels mad, which was a very interesting part for me. So what they're basically saying is that in an ICE situation, you open the throttle, then the engine reacts to that, and then that torque extra reaches the wheel, and that has a reaction time. And I think the time is about 150 milliseconds for the really quick things. Ather was able to pull up 90 milliseconds from you opening the throttle to something happening at the wheel, which is why it feels like, whoa, so quick, right?
Yeah.
So they've basically pushed it further by getting more from the motor.
Okay.
So it accelerates even harder in Warp Plus. And even in the racetrack environment, you notice. Okay. From 0 to 40, they're claiming 2.9 seconds. It doesn't sound much faster because the Warp was in that ballpark anyway. But 40 to 80, it does. You can feel it pull in the mid-range, which is very, very nice. So Meko has a lot of slow U-turns where it feels like Warp. And the fact that the track removes a lot of the close-placed reference elements also makes your sense of speed lower, so you won't notice 0 to 40 too much. You come out to some of the faster corners and get on the throttle, this Apex is just accelerating forward with intent, and I loved riding that part of it. So that is very cool, it is very interesting. And what they said is batteries heat up slowly and batteries cool slowly, but motors heat up fast and they also cool off fast. So they're saying on the Apex, if you overheat and feel deration, it might recover in the space of standing at a traffic light.
Oh.
So you might be able to recover full Warp Plus performance repeatedly during your commute, even if you're facing deration. Obviously, a lot of their testing happens in Bengaluru, where the weather is much cooler. I would love to test it here and where the weather is warmer and see how this works.
But how long did you have the Warp functioning without deration? I mean, just like first.
So they're saying so far few kilometers.
Okay.
They're not saying beyond that. Right. Some of the certification work, I think, on the scooter is remaining. So Ather is a little cautious about claiming numbers.
So not insignificant. It's not like a, hey, I did a blast around the block and it's done.
No. It will last a few kilometers, I think, before it seriously overheats. And remember, in the city environment, going this kind of fast is not possible. At Mecco, we were riding full throttle, full brake, full throttle, full brake, and that lap. And I think it's a 1.3, 1.4 kilometer lap. I don't have the number, I'm just guessing at this point. But on that lap, you could still maybe go 2 laps before you felt it start to happen, right? So, for example, on my second session, I was doing 88 kilometers per hour on the speedo before I turned into the first turn. But on the last lap, where I also did 88, I entered the straight going 2 kmph faster, but still only managed to hit 88. So obviously the power had gone away by then. Okay. But what they're saying is between sessions, and there were 4 batches running more or less concurrently, they basically gave us a 10-minute break and put us back on the scooter. And they said, and if we weren't trying to make sure everybody got the full Walk Plus experience, we wouldn't need those 10 minutes, we'd need a lot less time. Okay. Because motor cools much faster, motor heats much faster. Batteries, if they were thermally being strained at this point, then they would actually have a problem. So we know that Athers generally don't overheat.
Correct.
And their battery thermal management is very good. And they're saying that's not the strain point. The motor heats and cools. So they expect that you'd use Walk Plus, you'd feel the duration coming, then you'd stop at a signal or something, and then you'd feel a lot of the performance coming back immediately. So very, very solid change. You do feel it. I didn't get to ride it in the traffic. I'm waiting for the Apex to come for testing because I think I already use Warp mode like the whole time. And I think Warp Plus will just take it to the next level. And underlining this is how good the frame is. Yeah. Because Mecco is a reasonably smooth but a tight and twisty track. You could keep pushing.
The surface is tarmac.
Okay. So you could keep pushing, and there's some amount of rubber on it, and how go-karts are, a little bit of oil here and there will be there and stuff. But you could just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and the chassis still got it. It still feels narrow.
So I was wrong about the suspension and tires.
They haven't changed it. There was a side conversation about why they didn't alter the suspension setup on the 450S, which is supposed to be like a calmer, gentler scooter. And they said that the stroke is relatively limited. So their ability to tune the suspension is also limited. They can't do much more. Okay. Maybe the family scooter which will come, which is a larger format, maybe they'll have an opportunity to do a completely different kind of suspension setup. Maybe some of it will be retrofittable, I don't know.
Because I feel like that sporty edge that it has actually gets in its way.
Yes,
if it had more compliance, I think it would be even more
and I think
fun.
In a situation where an Indian family generally shares vehicles, that specific a setup that does that specific a behavior, I think it also makes your decision making harder because the youngsters will like it, and I don't think the oldies will gravitate towards it so much. So yeah, I fully agree with you there. The other feature was internally called only throttle riding. Okay. It's officially called Magic Twist.
Nice. I hope it is what it is.
What do you think it is?
Regen.
Yes. So what they've been working on is, Ather said we've not taken Regen too seriously so far. Okay, because what they're saying, and the logic makes sense to me, is that from 100% charge, which is where you mostly start your day, because we all charge overnight, you won't see any Regen happening till the battery falls to 80% anyway.
Correct.
And by that point, most people, their commutes are also nearly over. So they have a level of Regen built in, and they've never really paid attention to it. So when you coast, you have Regen, and when you do this, you have a little bit more Regen, and that's all they did. What they've done for the Apex is they've completely re-engineered the throttle, so it actually now goes both ways. This is a lot as usual. This is a lot less, but there is more movement than usual. And the idea is that you can modulate how much Regen you want.
Can you actually come to a stop with it?
And you can come to a stop with it. Okay, so what they said is that, look, if you assume that the previous version of Regen did 30% of what a brake might do, this would do 75%, and they're aiming for 100%. So they're working towards a situation where they can run calibrations to the point where you can do everything that you do just with the throttle and never touch your brake in the city environment.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you the experience before I tell you the engineering. So we were taken for a sighting lap, which for our group was a little bit fast because somebody was riding quite aggressively. And therefore what we discovered is that when you come into a corner and you roll past the throttle stop and you actively start selecting more and more Regen, from 80 to 60 there's not a lot that happens. So you start panicking a little bit. When you start panicking, you're on the brake, and then suddenly there's a lot of Regen. So that calibration remains. But what that means is 60 to 0. The speed range that you'd usually use in the city, you'd notice a significant amount of braking coming just from closing past the throttle stop and using the Regen. It felt natural from that point onwards. Okay. It didn't feel spiky or unpredictable. It felt spiky. It felt predictable. So I think tomorrow when you go into the city, an average non-super quick rider, you would be able to learn how to use it. It's not an intuitive system.
Okay, why do you
Just
say
in terms
that?
of biomechanics, if you think about it, we've learned to ride with our forearms horizontal all the time because it's the most efficient way to steer a machine. Most people ride like this or like this. And when you try to close the throttle from here, it is still a reasonably natural riding position. From here, it is quite a bit of work because now your shoulder's involved. From here, it's even more so. So I don't think this is a natural thing to do. But I think it's the closest you can get to what would be called single pedal driving in a car. The difference to me is in a car, you're basically using only one pedal and not using the other one, which is an easy behavior change. Here, you're taking what you've learned to do for the whole of your life and adding a component to it, which to me is a bigger step.
Okay, so when you go start using the regen, when you twist the other way, is the tension the same or is it little?
It's very similar. I don't know if it's exactly the same or not, but it didn't feel fundamentally different in terms of resistance.
Okay.
But 60 and below is where the most of the work happens, not above. And you can come to a full stop with the throttle closed past the throttle stop to the stop. So now you have two stops, right? You have a small stop and a big stop. The problem I have is because in the middle stop where the throttle goes to zero, they can't make it a too big a step.
Correct.
Because then you have to and go past.
You'll have to push
right?
again. Yeah.
So you'll have to take time to learn that that's the point to which I bring throttle, and then I choose brakes over regen, or I choose brakes and regen, or I choose only regen. It's little difficult to learn. So engineering, I think sorted. More work remains, but fundamentals are good. Feeling okay. The behavior change required for somebody to start using it every day, that's going to be a big one. We'll see how this pans out.
Wow, I'm really keen
It's
to
not
see
as
this.
intuitive a system as a lift off the brake pedal and let the throttle do all the work as in a car. Remember, even in the cars, I objected to the Hyundai system where you have two levels of regen and you can select with the paddle. So I don't want this. I want settings in the menu. I will play with it for a few months while I'm learning this car as a new owner. Then I will find the setting that I'm happy about, and that will become my single pedal driving mode, right? It's an expectation thing.
Right.
Because it's hardware and software, they obviously cannot retrofit Magic Twist to their previous scooters. I'm not so sure about Warp Plus, but I think the way they manage the thermals on the motor also has some hardware in it. So I don't think Warp Plus is also going to their current scooter line as an update. New scooters might get it in iterations, but not the older ones. So if you have a 450X and you're expecting to be able to get to Warp Plus, I don't think that that's happening to you.
Okay. Any difference in terms of range?
They said that if you use the regen well, you might get 10 kilometers more on a charge. So it's a more efficient system. And remember, we had made a joke, I think, on the Orha Mantis MotorInc First, saying humans, they find it very easy to waste energy. So how hard can it be for a machine? Well, Ather told us that it's actually kind of quite hard. And yeah, it was a joke. I know that it's quite hard. But what they figured out is when the battery is full or up to 80%, where regen is usually not very significant, how to reroute the power back into the motor, allow the heat of the motor to dissipate that energy, and therefore give you the feeling of regen anyway. So what they're saying is we will give you consistent regen from 100 down to lower battery states.
I'm really intrigued as to how they've done this.
Yeah, I think they filed quite a bit of IPs on hardware and software to do this, and I think it's fundamentally a good idea. The first taste of it felt very good. How many people will be able to naturally fit it into their riding pattern is what I would really be interested in seeing, because it is a significant behavior change to mess with throttle operation.
So just as context, like when braking, an electric motor can actually generate more power than it actually consumes while accelerating. That's the kind of energy it can create. So which also translates into heat. Now, clearly they won't be doing it that aggressively at those speeds, but even then to come to a standstill from 60 to 0, how is it towards the later, is it one gradual flow down from 60 or is it?
So if you go to full stop, max regen, there's a lot of brake force in there.
Oh yeah?
And they said that we had to calibrate it so that you can't lock the rear wheel using regen.
Correct.
Right? And in the corners, while we were adapting to the system, my challenge was that I have panicked because I'm not used to this system. So I am on the brakes because I waited, and I'm coming down from 80. So it's not doing anything, Now I've panicked and hit the brake, then gone into the speed range where it starts working. But by that time, I'm rolled into regen and I have the brakes on.
Right.
Now the regen is becoming really strong.
That also will be like you've closed you've closed it all the way for regen plus front brake.
Correct. Now I don't have a way of undoing the regen and going back to my brakes. So this is a learning thing for me, right? So I have a challenge here. And normally, if I were to trail brake into a corner, which I was doing in this situation, I'd be using my front.
Right.
But the regen is happening at the back. Luckily, on a scooter, you can get away with a lot of rear brake, and sometimes it can stabilize the scooter more. So it's not automatically a problem. But in my head, my dynamics are it's happening at the back, and I can't really let off the brake, and I can't really get off the regen because I'm committed in terms of my body position, right? It was whoa. It didn't feel unsafe. Okay, it didn't feel like it was going to lock up or fold or something was going to happen. But I needed a lot of calibration laps before I would say I know exactly how to play with this system. There are these 3 corners where it gets complicated, so I'll just go to the throttle stop and use my brakes only. And then there are these other places where it's much lighter braking, and I just use regen to get.
Tell me, when you were done with your track session and when you rolled back into the pit,
Yeah.
did you use it to stop?
Yeah, I did.
You could?
I did, yeah, absolutely. And it felt completely natural. I mean, it didn't. So, again, remember that modulating controls in a non-panic situation is a much simpler activity. But now you're seeing this turn and there's like a tire wall and grass and they've got like 5 apexes and there's 8 journalists waiting to ride. I certainly don't want to be the one to crash it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like this and I'm like, how long do I wait for the regen to kick in? Is just a calibration issue. And I don't have enough time to calibrate yet because, I mean, we only got 2 laps on an old 450X with the regen system. So I think in the city, I don't know how much calibration time regen will take, but WAP Plus will be an instant hit. I mean, anybody who rides that scooter will be like, yes, this is fast.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So no current range claims yet. They're saying you'll get similar to what WAP does. If you use the regen well, the range that you normally see might go up by as much as 10 kilometers.
And the regen is not tied to modes or anything like that? There's nothing like that?
The only visual change is when you are in WAP Plus, it's now a purple colored screen with the same graphic and all, but it's purple. That's
okay. All. So like in cars, you know, the regen level can vary depending on which mode you're in, right? So that's not dependent in any which way to whether you're in WAP Plus or anything like that. It's just on what you're doing with the throttle.
See, to me, if I were Ather, I wouldn't do it either. Because this is a long learning.
No, I'm just asking.
No, I'm saying logically, this is anyway such a learning process.
Right.
I wouldn't want to complicate it by saying there's so much in eco, so much in sport, so much in ride, and so much in WAP. This is what it is. Get used to it. Just the idea that when I roll past the throttle stop, I have an additional modulation to make, saying I only want to use a quarter, 50%, 75%, 100% regen, that in itself is going to be a big learning curve.
And can I switch it off?
I didn't ask, but I think you should be able to.
Yeah.
Okay? I think there is a law in there that gets in the way of you turning off regen completely though.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, because Indian EVs are required to have regen by law. I'm assuming that means that you can't actually turn regen off on anything. So Ather may not have the legal option of turning regen off because, I mean, it's just a software button. You go into a menu, say, I don't want regen, and that's fine. That's what I would do. I mean, most manufacturers claim that regen does some 7% back or some low number like that, right? I don't need it.
7% is a lot, but yeah, I think it would be under 5. But anyways, the point being that that question came from the idea that, let's say I'm not comfortable with the idea of the throttle going the other way, right? I tried it, I don't like it.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a hard way to stop the throttle from going past.
No, that's fine.
Right? So if you go past, no regen should happen. I don't know that option is there.
Okay.
We'll have to recheck that.
Okay, fine.
Right? So
if we'll ask, and once we get the answer, we'll just put it in the comments.
Yeah. So the scooter is priced at 2 lakh rupees. No FAME subsidies. That 750 watt charger is included.
Oh.
Right. So I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, a 30,000 rupee jump on the top 450X Pro Pack model.
Okay.
So yes, it is an expensive scooter.
And are there any subscriptions involved in any of this? Anything at all?
They haven't explicitly clarified, but we know that almost all of the software features and all of that is coming from the subscription anyway. But it sort of felt like that was the all-inclusive price for the Pro Pack, and I don't think they'll do a non-Pro Pack Apex at all.
Okay.
So I think there will be...
That would make sense.
Yeah, so there will be one Apex scooter with a 750 watt charger built in that blue color with all of the subscriptions built in, and you will still pay 1 rupee per minute for fast charging on the Ather fast charging network. And I don't think there is a current service package.
Okay.
They're working it out or something like that. So there's no current service subscription that you can purchase. So when that happens, this will happen. And because this is the peak scooter, it will get whatever is the maximum battery warranty, etc. is my assumption. Again, these clarifications will come. For what you should know is I've ridden the scooter, but the price is not out yet. So I know the price because they told us, but I don't know the full structure of the pricing yet.
Okay.
So that will have come out by the time this releases. So we'll add a pinned comment with these 2 things in it. But my assumption is because it's the top scooter, they won't leave things out.
Yeah.
There won't be anything optional on the scooter. You'll buy this as a package and that's that.
Okay.
So they haven't applied for FAME subsidies or anything on the scooter at all. This is the full package.
All right.
right? So expensive, yes. Fun, hugely. Good looking, I think it's going to be a personal choice. I do like the blue color. If it didn't have the transparent panel, would I have a higher or lower impression of it? Honestly, no, not really. If they had really finished the internal frame to that level of displayability with all the zip ties taken care of and all of that, maybe I would have been more impressed by it. But to me, if I were to receive the scooter with that blue painted, I'd still think it would be looking as good or whatever.
And the wheels, what color are they?
Orange?
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyways,
orange.
you'll see it in the images. I've really not seen anything about this.
Yeah, no, in fact, this is a challenging MotorInc First for us because I neither have GoPro footage as I usually do, nor do I have photographs because this event was held after dark.
Oh.
By the time the event briefing got over and I looked out, it was already dark.
Oh, wow.
Then I looked at my GoPro 9, which anyway, half the time doesn't record anything. But I looked at it, I looked at that, and I said, this is a bad idea, so there's no point. And then whatever you are seeing are B-roll footage that Ather has given us, which is why you'll see stuff like there's no glove on the hand that is closing the region. It's not us. I'd never ride without a glove. But this is B-roll footage. This is how it is. That's the story of the Ather 450 Apex. So you were absolutely right. Same battery. Hardware-wise, same motor. The first three modes are exactly the same. So generative human intelligence is doing very well.
Hey, so thanks for being predictable, but cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Summary?
Go for it.
Yeah. First and foremost, being an 450, it's pretty familiar. It's the same looking scooter, but it does get a new color, indium blue or something like
Indium blue.
Indium blue, all right, which is basically the most recent shade of blue discovered, which is not so recent. It was in 2009. Okay, and it gets the coolest part, which in my mind is the tail section where it's kind of translucent. It gets a glossy finish on the outside, so it looks slick, but on the inside it's frosted, so it kind of diffuses what's happening behind that panel, so it still looks cool. And the best bit there is that orange frame, which, as it turns out, as Shumi found out through Jehan, is the exact same shade as the KTM's orange shade for the frame.
And the panel is blue tinted also, so it's not a clear panel. It has a blue tint on.
It's blue tinted, right? You do have the option of some accessories which come in different shades of blue for the side blades that the Ather has. I don't know if there are any other parts other than that.
There's a specifically colored helmet which has to be hand painted because it's a really complicated color scheme. If you're interested.
Okay, cool. So you have that helmet as well. Aside from that, what's changed on the scooter are two features. One, you have a new Warp Plus mode, which...
You got it right in the main video and now you're getting Warp X?
Warp Plus because of Apex. I'm thinking XX. So anyway, so it's a Warp Plus mode which bumps up the performance, taking it up to 100 kilometers an hour. Also turns up the acceleration dramatically by feel. In terms of numbers, it's 0 to 14, 2.9 seconds, which is about where it was earlier, but it feels much faster. What Shumi said was the big difference is between 40 to 80, where it really goes, right? And that sounds really exciting. Yeah. Scooters, small wheels, that kind of acceleration always feels ferocious. So that should be fun, a lot of fun. And as far as how far you can go in Warp Plus, would be a couple of kilometers, which is not insignificant given that the hardware, the motor and the battery is effectively the same. And after that, you will feel some duration, as did Shumi, while riding on the track. But this was after a few laps on the go-kart track. And even then the duration is gradual, which means your riding experience remains intact and something that you stay connected with, so it feels safe even in, when it's derating. Also, because it's the motor that gets hot, Ather says that it will recover from the duration quickly, like when you're standing at a stoplight or maybe you just stop at the shops to get something, right? The battery pack is effectively the same. The other cool part, I'm specifying that, is because now the second feature, which really is impressive, is that it has Regen, which is like, as they call it, what is it? OTR.
That was the internal code.
Yeah.
Magic twist.
Yeah, it's called magic twist. So basically regen to the point where you can come to a stop using regen. This works through the accelerator, through the throttle. You turn it negative, basically push the other way past the stop, which would be your normal place where it would come to a stop. And that's when you get more braking. You get braking from the motor, so you don't have to use the brakes. Shumi said 80 to 60, it felt a little dull in the way it was intervening, but from 60 to 0, you felt it come on strong, where it felt like it was braking strong. But he says that it's smooth, so it's not something that you'll feel taken aback by, as in it's not doing sudden braking or anything like that. It's consistent, so it's predictable, which means it will be good to use, but you will have to get used to the system first and foremost. Of turning the throttle the other way around. Also, if you're used to using the front brake, that will be over there as well. So you'll be doing a lot with your right hand.
Also, I just remembered that since we were at the track, we were basically in full regen almost all the time, because why would you do anything less? So we were always experiencing the full force of regen rather than a modulated version of it. So I'm sure gentler braking can happen. It's just that modulating a long throttle is something we've learned over the years. Modulating a short negative throttle is something that we have left to learn.
It's like left foot braking. It's you'll have to get used to it. The good thing about this is not only does it should make it theoretically easier to use, but in city traffic, once you get used to it, they say you can actually extend the range that you would get from your Ather 450 Apex because of the regen.
And extend the life of the brake pads.
Yeah, money saved, right? So the idea of the 450 Apex has come from the Ather team to Tarun, as it were, saying that it's 10 years of Ather starting now till end of next year, October next year. So this is a celebratory model. So it's the Apex also from the standpoint of being the peak of this platform as it is right now. There will be new evolutions of it which will flesh out the new lineup that Ather brings to us. And Shumi says there's a family-oriented scooter that's coming our way in 3 to 4 months, which could show us what that is. This is priced at about 2 lakh rupees. Deliveries will start from March and will carry on till October, and they will fulfill whatever demand that they see in the period from now till then. Right? There's no change to the suspension. There's no change to the tires, which I thought would have been nice, given that it's getting more performance as well. But as is, he had a lot of fun on the track with it, cornering and all of that. So
and honestly, despite the movement upwards in performance, it's not like the chassis feels anywhere close to upset.
Yeah,
it's just on it, planted, and you just have to get over that feeling saying, oh, narrow scooter or narrow tires, so therefore falling. As soon as you get over that feeling, there's a lot of grip and stability.
And if you remember when they did the update, that was 2 years back, a year and a half back, when they did whatever the last version was, 450X, I think.
Yeah, but version 3 or 4 or something.
Whatever, whichever one I remember. But then they switched to the newer tires, which have a more rounded profile, are wider as well. So there was a step up there as well. So I think they may have already factored that in.
It's still like a little knife edgy. And you have to get over that feeling, because it's a feeling. It doesn't actually translate into a lack of grip or anything.
Right.
It just snaps to lean angle, and it's really good at it. You just have to get used to that feeling and then play with it.
And the only other difference is in the interface when you use Warp Plus, it goes to a shade of blue. Purple, okay. So yeah, so the wheels are orange. That's basically the Ather 450 Apex. So as of now, we're not 100% sure about everything being wrapped in, but we're assuming that it is wrapping in all the subscriptions and everything. But what we do know for sure is the 750 watt charger comes bundled in that price, which is 2 lakh rupees. Ather has not applied for the FAME subsidies, so that price is what it is. So it is about 40-something thousand rupees more than
40,000, yeah.
40,000 rupees more than the next Ather 450.
X 3.7. That's the next scooter.
X 3.7?
Yeah, because there's an X 2.9 also now. Confusing things.
Okay, whatever the next Ather is, right? So it's that much more expensive than it. And I think from the standpoint that it's meant to be a celebration of 10 years of Ather, it's cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed riding the scooter. Whether this price is justified or not is a long drawn out discussion. We can have it in the comments if you prefer. But yeah. So what did you think?
I think, well, it meets expectations, and in some regards, it exceeds expectations. I like the fact that they have pushed ahead with the idea of regen, because it's not easy to do.
No.
It has, the biggest challenge always is human behavior, and the fact that they are willing to try this out, I think is cool. I think it's something that, as people learn to use, like single pedal driving also was a challenge for people, right? And people still do find it challenging, which is why people do levels and stuff like that. But if the system is well tuned and once you get used to it, it becomes like second behavior.
Correct.
So it may be the start, it may not be perfect, but it's good that they've put it out there.
No, and again, for what Ather I like about them is their version ones are usually really good. And I cannot say that this is not the case for Regen either. This is a very good implementation. And they are saying it's raw. They are saying we have to refine this further. And they are saying if Regen does 30% of the work, this new magic twist thing does 75% of the work, and our aim is to get to 100% of the work. They are ambitious about it. I like it. They're not pushing out technology before it's ready to deploy. I like that. My big issue is behavior change.
Right. So let's see how it works out when we get to ride it here. But I'd be surprised if it's terrible.
No, it's not. I don't think it's going to be terrible. My big issue is always, will behavior change? Will people be willing to play, learn, recalibrate their control mechanism, and then adopt this saying, yeah, this is just so good. And therefore, then Ather will have an incentive to say, okay, all scooters get this at some point in the future. I think it's a big step.
Yeah, it is. And for something like the Apex with the name and everything that it's got, it's the right place to do it, because it should be the people who really want to experience what is the latest from a company. I think it's where it should be.
Yeah. So the Ather 450 range is now 4 scooters. There's the S, X, X, and Apex. Yeah. So the base scooter is the S with the 2.9 kilowatt hour battery. Then there is the X with the same battery. Then there is the X with the 3.7 kilowatt hour battery. And now there is the Apex on top.
You're reminding me about Tata conversations, man. It's simpler, but still 2.9,
Hey, look,
3.9 and
unlike
X
the Nexon with its personas, Ather has made it really simple. They all look the same.
Okay, Chal, which variant would you recommend somebody to buy right now?
Look, if you don't have a long commute, get the S. I really like that LCD screen. I prefer it over the touch screen.
Okay.
It's fast enough. It's reasonably good. It has decent range. If your commute is, I'm going to say 20 kilometers or less, don't buy the X. There's no need. Unless you miss warp mode. And if you miss warp mode, don't buy the X 2.9, buy the X 3.7.
Okay.
Which is slightly more range and warp mode. So if you're reasonably fast, you like warp mode, and your commute is, let's say, 30 kilometers or less.
So you're saying 30 kilometers because 30 kilometers one way? Is that what you're saying?
No, you remember we did a calculation. We're saying roughly 3 days of range is what you want.
Correct.
So the X gets you to the 90 kilometers of rated range. So 30 kilometers is your commute by that math. So if you ride 30 kilometers or less, if you're a reasonably fast rider and like me, you find yourself in warp mode a lot, get the X with 3.7. If you do have money to spare, it's worth exploring the 450 Apex because the performance delta is not insignificant. You can feel it. The 10k mph on top, I am certainly going to be using it, right? So it's a mindset thing. Okay. And obviously because it's the most expensive scooter and all of that, not everybody's going to have it.
I love it that the S is where you started in saying that this is a good enough scooter.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Ather's entry-level scooter makes so much sense. Right? Because anyway, their scooters are premium priced and all of those things. But the fact that their bottom scooter to me is making a lot of sense, I think is very good. Because if you look at some of their rivals, their bottom products are basically decontented to the point where you look at it and say, what is this nonsense scooter? Whereas their middle products are not so bad. Right. And the top product has a reasonable feature range or whatever. By the time you get to the bottom, there's nothing left. Ather's not gone down that road and I really like them for it. They said even our entry-level scooter is expensive. But it is still a full-fledged Ather experience, not some drum-braked version of it, as it were.
Gotcha.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm covered. I mean, since there's no change in motor, battery, there's no question of weight being different or seat heights and suspension is same. So I'm guessing practicality and everything wise, it's the same.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So it's as practical as any Ather. It has the same kind of comfort levels as any Ather, which is good for younger riders, maybe not so great for older riders. You slide forward in the seat a little bit, just like the old Athers, all of those things. If you have any more questions about the 450 Apex, do leave us a comment. We'll get you as good an answer as we can muster up. And
yeah, thanks so much for watching.